Hi guys! Today we'll break down the pro steps for a lifelike rose.
We're answering your questions and sharing pro tips for shading a realistic rose. So
watch closely and listen carefully. Why do you start the rose outline with such a light RL3 instead of jumping straight to RL5 or RL7?
Starting light is like sketching on paper. It gives a soft guideline for the petals without creating harsh lines. In realism, bold outlines can make the tattoo look flat or cartoonish. Light RL3 keeps the stencil visible and lets us build shadows gradually.
Oh, so it's more like creating a gentle roadmap than actually drawing the final line?
Exactly. Think of it as laying the foundation. You can always adjust without ruining the petals, and later you can go back with RL5 or RL7 only on areas that need more definition.
And even if the stencil fades a bit while shading, these soft lines still guide you?
Yes, that's a big advantage. These light lines stay visible and help you maintain smooth gradients following the petal's natural shape. It keeps the shading realistic and avoids harsh edges.
Why do you gradually build layers from a lighter gray wash toward darker shades instead of starting with the darkest cup right away?
Gradually layering allows the petals to gain soft, natural depth. Starting light and building up avoids harsh contrast and keeps transitions smooth. This approach ensures the rose looks three-dimensional and lifelike, rather than flat. Later, when you reach a professional level, you'll notice that sometimes you can start with a slightly darker shade right away, but only after you understand how the layers interact.
Makes sense. So each layer adds more volume without overdoing it?
Exactly. Multiple gentle layers gradually darken folds and curves, giving a realistic, soft look to the petals. One heavy pass would make the shading look muddy.
And following the natural curves of each petal is important while layering, right?
Yes, always. Moving along the natural curves enhances the 3D form, making the shading flow with the petal instead of looking flat.
Can you explain why following the natural curves of petals is so important when shading a rose?
Following the natural curves ensures that the shading enhances the three-dimensional form of the petal. If you try to shade in straight linear strokes, the petal will look flat and unnatural. Realism is all about mimicking how light and shadow interact with natural forms. By moving your machine along the curve, you're essentially painting with the shape, which helps every fold and indentation look more lifelike.
So it's really about preserving the natural depth and making the petals look alive?
Exactly. Each fold, each dip matters. Following the curves allows you to gradually build shadows where they naturally belong, giving volume and softness. Without respecting the natural form, even the smoothest gray wash will look artificial. It's a combination of observation, hand control, and patience.
Wow, I didn't expect that. I always thought straight lines were faster and fine.
That's a common mistake. Speed can be tempting, but realism requires careful attention to the subtle curves. Take your time and follow the flow naturally. You'll see a huge difference in the depth and life of your petals.
How do you decide which needle to use for shading versus outlining, especially in realism tattoos?
Choosing the right needle is crucial. For outlines, I usually pick a round liner like RL5 or RL7 because it gives a precise, clean line without damaging the skin. For shading, I switch to curved magnums like CM9 or CM11. Their shape allows ink to flow smoothly across the skin, covering wider areas efficiently while maintaining soft gradients. Using the wrong needle can make shading patchy, uneven, or harsh, which breaks the realism effect. Think of it as choosing the right brush for a painting. You wouldn't use a fine liner to paint a sky.
So the shape really changes how smooth the gradient looks. I never realized that.
Exactly. The curved magnums allow ink to deposit gradually, so every layer blends naturally into the next. Straight needles don't have the same coverage and can leave harsh edges if you're not careful. Proper needle choice is a key part of mastering realism.
Makes sense. I guess it's not just technique, but also tools.
Absolutely. Even the best hand technique won't look realistic if you use the wrong needle. Tools and technique go hand in hand, especially for soft, smooth gradients in roses and portraits.
Why do you always start shading roses from the darkest inner areas instead of the outer petals?
Starting from the darkest parts helps build depth gradually. Once the shadows are in place, blending toward lighter edges becomes much easier, giving a soft and realistic look.
Ah, that explains why my petals looked flat sometimes.
Exactly. Layering from dark to light ensures dimension without harsh lines. Always build slowly, one gentle layer at a time.
When blending the outer edges of petals, how do you keep the transition soft without losing detail?
Use very light passes and gradually fade toward the tip. Always follow the petal's curve and layer slowly. This keeps the transition soft while preserving structure.
I see. So patience is key, even on the edges?
Exactly. Rushing can flatten the petals or make harsh lines. Soft, careful blending always wins.
How do you use negative space effectively in rose shading to create highlights?
Negative space is key for realism. I leave small areas untouched where light would naturally hit. This creates natural highlights and contrast without adding extra white ink. Overfilling these areas can flatten the look, so careful planning and observing the light direction is crucial.
Wow, I didn't realize leaving gaps could make such a difference.
Exactly. Negative space balances the shadows, enhances depth, and keeps the rose lively and realistic. It's one of the most subtle yet powerful tools in shading.
If you're enjoying this so far, make sure to hit that like button and tap hype down below.
And don't forget to drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's keep going with the questions and the rest of the video.
How do you handle the folds and indentations in petals to make them look three-dimensional?
Always follow the natural curves and valleys of each petal. Darken the deeper areas gradually with soft layers. The key is to build depth without harsh edges. This technique enhances the 3D effect, making each petal appear alive and natural. Observe the light source and mimic it in your shading for a realistic outcome.
Makes sense. So every fold needs its own attention.
Exactly. Rushing through folds flattens the petal. Slow, careful layering preserves the natural curves and depth.
How do you decide which gray wash to use for different parts of the rose petals?
I prepare multiple cups with increasing black drops. The lightest for outer edges, medium for midtones, and darkest for inner folds. Each cup represents a step in building depth gradually. This ensures smooth gradients, natural shadows, and a realistic 3D effect. Testing on fake skin helps verify the transition before applying it to the actual tattoo.
Wow, I didn't know so much planning goes into each cup.
Exactly. Proper gray wash planning is crucial for soft, realistic petals and avoiding harsh contrasts.
When do you decide to go back with a larger RL needle to sharpen areas?
After finishing most of the shading and blending, I evaluate which areas need more definition. Using a larger RL5 or 7, I only refine the edges or specific details, keeping the overall rose soft. This technique preserves realism while subtly enhancing contrast and clarity where it's needed.
Ah, so sharpening isn't done everywhere, just where necessary.
Exactly. Over-sharpening flattens the rose. Strategic detailing keeps petals lively and realistic.
How do you maintain soft edges while adding depth to the petals?
I always use gentle repeated passes along the natural curves. Layering gradually builds depth without harsh lines. Following the petal's flow ensures that shadows and highlights transition smoothly. The softer your edges, the more natural the petals appear.
Makes sense. So the key is following the natural curve.
Exactly. Rushing or using straight strokes flattens the petals. Slow, careful layering preserves realism.
How do you know a petal has enough depth without overworking the skin?
You monitor the gradient closely and stop once the shadows are smooth and natural. Overworking the skin can cause ink to spread and the gray wash to look muddy. Gentle layering and stepping back to evaluate the petal frequently ensures controlled depth and realistic shading.
Wow, I didn't realize stepping back was so important.
Exactly. Constantly checking prevents overshading and keeps the petals lively and realistic.
How do you achieve smooth transitions from dark to light without harsh lines?
The key is gentle layering along the natural curve of the petal. I move slowly, following the flow, and gradually darken areas without pressing too hard. Repeating soft passes builds depth while keeping transitions seamless. Harsh lines happen when pressure is inconsistent or strokes are too straight.
Makes sense. So it's really about control and flow.
Exactly. Mastering control and flow is essential for realistic petals with smooth gradients.
How do you decide where to leave negative space for highlights on the petals?
I observe the natural light source and leave small areas untouched where light would naturally hit. Negative space adds dimension and contrast, making the petals appear shiny and more three-dimensional. It's about balance. Too much or too little can affect realism.
Wow, I didn't think about leaving parts untouched like that.
Exactly. Strategic negative space is one of the secrets to soft, realistic roses.
When using whip shaming on large petals, how do you prevent overworking the skin?
Always start close to the dark base and lift gradually as you move outward. Keep your wrist relaxed and your passes light. Avoid lingering too long in one spot. Whip shading should fade naturally, creating smooth gradients without stressing the skin.
So it's really about observing the petal rather than counting layers.
Exactly. Each petal is unique, so adapting as you go ensures realism and softness.
How do you adjust shading for petals that are closer to the light source versus those in shadow?
I use lighter gray washes on petals near the light and darker washes for those in shadow. The gradient must be gradual, keeping transitions smooth. Observing where light naturally falls helps maintain realism and soft three-dimensional effects.
Wow, I didn't realize shading changes so much with the light direction.
Exactly. Paying attention to light direction is crucial for realistic and lively petals.
How do you handle the tiny folds and creases in rose petals when shading?
I carefully follow each fold with slightly darker gray washes, layering gently. The key is subtlety. Small, repeated passes enhance depth without making the folds look harsh or unnatural. This brings realism and life to each petal.
So those tiny folds really make a big difference in realism.
Exactly. Paying attention to even the smallest details elevates the overall tattoo quality.
Sometimes shading a rose feels overwhelming, but every petal is progress, right?
Exactly. Each petal you master brings you closer to creating a truly lifelike tattoo. Keep going. You're building something amazing.
And I really hope this video could help you, even just a little.
Don't forget to hit like, and down below, make sure to cap hype too.
Keep pushing your art forward. Follow my step-by-step tutorials and pro techniques. Never stop learning. Check out the other videos for more tips and tricks, and I'll see you in the next one.